Jim Beis, the mayor of Pierrefonds-Roxboro, they're getting hit the worst, 7.2%, right? That's the tax hike residentially on average in Pierrefonds-Roxboro. We had a chance to speak yesterday afternoon. We wanted Jim to come back today so we could do a follow-up here because we also talked, as Matt was just mentioning, to Maya Vodanovich over in Lachine. She's on the executive committee. Jim, we talked about a couple of things that you were upset with, and I want you to hear, because I pointed one of these things out to Maya. Listen to her reaction to this.
There's a lot of things that he's saying that shock me. He's saying public transit. I mean, they have the REM. The REM is going there, and the REM is costing hundreds of millions of dollars. We're implementing new stations. We have to coordinate the work. We have to make change to certain streets. We're doing all of this. So we are spending money, and public transit will be so much better in the West Island. And about flooding, we are spending lots of money. There's all these natural disasters that have been happening this year with the ice storm, the ice that was there, the flooding, yes, from the water, like in where Jim Beis is, from La Rivière des Prairies, but also downtown and in Lachine and elsewhere around Montreal, where people are being flooded, their basements, because there's too much water all of a sudden. So this budget addresses specifically those things.
Okay. Again, I'm not sure I heard answers in there, but she did basically call you out. You brought up the idea of public transit, like, where's my public transit? And she brought up the REM. So what's the solution here? What's the answer?
Oh, boy. Good afternoon, guys. Look, and I have to roll my eyes. This isn't a political thing. This is a serious issue that you heard what the Chamber of Commerce, the Economic Board of Trade. One thing that we're forgetting here is the residents, transit. We're talking about transit, the REM. First of all, the REM, the majority of the funding comes from the Quebec government. The train stations were there already in Pierrefonds-Roxboro. I had two, to the point where we are pushing, and we have for years been pushing to get extra lines and shuttle services to get them through my 30-kilometer territory to bring them efficiently eventually to the REM to use public transit, because ultimately this is what we all want. And we've always been refused at that level. That's public transit for you, okay? The second thing about floods, she vaguely touched on Pierrefonds-Roxboro. In 2017, we were the hardest hit community in Montreal, if not one of the hardest in Quebec. We have yet to see a cent to do any permanent structures or any permanent solutions in Pierrefonds-Roxboro. All we keep doing is band-aiding, to the point where we're reaching into our budget in the borough of Pierrefonds-Roxboro, $1 million since, to buy modular systems, because Montreal will not reimburse us. So it's nice for them to say all of this there. And you know what's fascinating even more to me is that these administrations in their boroughs somehow find that it's normal that we do this kind of budget and that we sell it at all costs to the residents, when the residents are the ones that will pay the price. She talked about, staffing. Do you know that Pierrefonds-Roxboro is the 13th, if not 14th, on the list of 19 boroughs with the least amount of employees per 100,000 residents, and we still get the job done? Now, it's ludicrous when I hear the justification. You know what I would do if I was in administration? I would assume it. And I would say, this is what it is. This is why we have to do it, instead of always passing the buck. If it's not the Quebec government, it's the fault of the boroughs. I heard the mayor yesterday on TV say, well, Jim Beis, they control their budget. They have their borough tax. Wait a second. My borough tax is 1.2%, to the point where we took $400,000 from our surplus, our citizens' surplus, to balance the books, because we're just not getting enough money back from the city of Montreal. So they can say whatever they want to justify it, to somehow make it nice that this budget, and they have no choice and they're up against the wall. We, at the last borough council, refused 3 major contracts because the quotes came in at 50% over budget, that we felt it was responsible for us to do that. And if we went ahead with it, we would incur a cost that was, if not double, triple the cost of what we estimated. So yes, there is prioritizing. There are projects that we need to absolutely go through with, because it involves infrastructure and all the rest of it. But certainly there are projects that we can put on the back burner up until such time that folks get back on their feet, especially post-pandemic, instead of trying to sell them something. You know that the OCPM sits at the Cour Mont-Royal 14th floor. That is prime real estate in the city of Montreal for an organization that's supposed to take care of public interest issues like, public consultations and so on. And we house them in probably some of the most expensive offices in Montreal, and these are supposed to be of the people. there really needs to be a real magnifying glass over the spending of this administration. Again, I don't like to be political. It's not my style. It never has been. But we have to also state the facts. And we talk about water systems and the water system in Montreal East, for example, where they had the flooding in the basement, especially with the downslope driveways. Yes, that is a priority. I understand that. But how is that going to affect us here in the West when we have, flooding that takes place every spring and now potentially in the winter? So all to say that I did hear some of their comments trying to defend this budget. And ultimately, what's happening here is we are absolutely forgetting the role of the citizen in all of this, because the resident themselves, and I've mentioned it yesterday, there are vulnerable segments in our community, and even if they're not vulnerable, that tax hike added to the property evaluation roll in Pierrefonds-Roxboro, which was, as a matter of fact, the highest in Montreal at 44%, where the average for the city of Montreal was 34%. They don't tell you that. But that 4.6 added on to the other percentages that we have, without getting into the numbers, really impact a community like mine, because we were the highest raised evaluation roll on the island of Montreal with almost 40. My house went up 47% for the next 3 years, up until next year. So, of course, you can only imagine a 4.6 interest rate, what it would do to the impact of my municipal taxes.
Yeah.
Yet they don't take account for that. They don't understand that the evaluation role plays a major role in that, and they should cut back on the percentage so that at least it offsets part of the cost given to the residents. And so this is where we are, folks, and it is frustrating to hear them continuously try to sell us something that nobody wants.
Jim, can I just ask, will you be running? Are you considering running perhaps in 2025 for mayor?
Got a lot of texts.
A lot of people think you should.
Yeah.
Thank you, folks. But you know what? Our look right now. And I say this with all sincerity. Our primary focus right now is to get our communities, all of our communities. There are silent majority communities that are suffering, and no one hears their voice, because we have folks like this in this administration that will sell you anything that they believe is going to do them justice. Okay. And at the same time, they throw everybody else under the bus, blaming them as if it's someone else's fault, whether it's the government or the boroughs that don't belong to them, and so on and so forth. So, look, we need to really take a close look at this through the budget period, and come adoption in December, really vote against a budget like this, because it's nothing that anyone wants.
I'm going to take that as a no. You might consider by 2025. You have 2 years to clean up the mess locally, and then you can run, because a lot of people think that would be a good idea. Jim Beis, the mayor, Pierrefonds-Roxboro. Jim, appreciate it. Thanks so much.
Stay well.